Welcome to ELFH Needs Assessment. My name is Christine Wiggins-Romsberg, and this is the orientation lecture to our course. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself again. My name is Christine Wiggins-Romsberg. Please feel free to call me Christine Romsberg or call me Christine. I am not a PhD yet. I'm a PhD student. I'm actually in the very last phase of my education, so we call that candidacy. So I'm a PhD candidate. Therefore, it would be inappropriate to call me Dr. Wiggins-Romsberg. Anyway, but I really do prefer that you call me Christine. We're all adults here in this class. I see no need for such formalities. So in addition to currently pursuing my PhD within this program and department, I received my Master's of Science in Human Resource Education from U of L, and before that, my Bachelor of Science in Economics from Clemson University. I have been an adjunct faculty member for 3 years. Now, this is part of my professional development as a future faculty member and professor. I also work with general education assessment here at U of L. Prior to that, I was a human resource manager for a medium-sized construction company with 700 employees. And prior to that, I was a construction manager overseeing a portfolio of new residential construction projects. The objectives for this orientation are to provide an overview of needs assessment, including the what, why, and who of needs assessment, discuss common misperceptions that students in this class often have. I'll discuss course policies and my teaching philosophy, including the HAT project and the process we will use, scaffolding, feedback, the timeliness of work, your participation grade, and writing. What is needs assessment? I like to think of needs assessment as being akin to seeking medical treatment. We might be experiencing some sort of pain, some sort of symptom, we don't know what it is, so we go and see a physician to get their medical advice. And the physician conducts an examination, and based on the examination, they provide a diagnosis. Once a diagnosis is given, a treatment plan can be determined. An organization might be experiencing some sort of pain or symptom. They might have low engagement, low motivation, high turnover. Perhaps they're not meeting sales objectives. Customer service reports are low. It can be any variety of situations. It also could be that maybe there's a new product line they want to expand into and they just don't know how. All of these are situations that could spark a needs assessment. The needs assessment itself is the exam and the diagnosis. So this is going to be you're collecting the data in the organization. You're going to talk to shareholders or stakeholders within the organization. You're going to conduct interviews, maybe conduct surveys. You're going to collect data, maybe historical records, and you're going to analyze this information. And once you do, you're going to be able to diagnose the problem. Once you diagnose the problem, then a treatment plan or a course of action can be determined. And the reason why we go to all of this trouble is that it increases the likelihood that our intervention, in other words, our treatment, is going to be more successful than if the needs assessment was never conducted. What is a needs assessment? It is a systematic set of procedures undertaken for the purpose of setting priorities and making decisions about program or organizational improvement and allocation of resources. The priorities are based on identified needs. Why do we conduct a needs assessment? Needs assessments grow out of a dissatisfaction with the present state of affairs, whatever that is, and the desire for change. As I just said, this is the situation that causes us to go to the doctor, whatever that pain is that we're experiencing that we do not know how to solve on our own. I'd like to provide you with 5 sample needs assessment scenarios. The first is a new computer center is opening at a university. It's not enough for a university to have a computer center. It must be successful. Therefore, you need to figure out what are the needs of the users, the needs of the students and the faculty who will be using it. What are the products and services that they need? What sort of training do they need? What sort of training will the employees who operate the center need? What are the appropriate staffing levels? What do those positions look like? These are all examples of questions a needs assessment on a topic like this might investigate. The number of return patients in a medical clinic has dropped over the last year. This could be due to any number of reasons. You might call up past patients and say, hey, this is, Dr. So-and-so's office. We noticed that you have not been here in the last year. I was wondering if I could ask you the reason why you did not return. You might find that maybe their condition got better and they didn't need to come back. Maybe you stopped taking patients with their type of insurance. Maybe the physician they saw left the practice to go somewhere else and now they're being seen there. These questions and others can be investigated, and not just from the patient side. You can also interview staff and medical professionals at the clinic to see, what sort of insight and what their knowledge is of the reason why patients are leaving. An urgent care center conducted a survey that found patients are extremely dissatisfied with wait times. In a needs assessment like this, you might try to figure out, well, exactly how long are they waiting? Is the problem with the front desk? Is the front desk being overwhelmed with too many patients coming in all at once? Perhaps the computer system is slow. Perhaps the front desk is understaffed or is not sufficiently trained. Maybe there are not enough people in nursing. Perhaps there are not enough physicians to see and treat the patients. So these are all examples of things that you might want to look at in a needs assessment of this type. Volunteers in a nonprofit are leaving and there are not enough volunteers to replace them. In the course of operating a nonprofit, I would think that this is a fairly common occurrence. You're going to have people leave and you need to have a constant inflow of people to replace them. It's going to be fairly normal as people's lives change, their ability to volunteer and give of their free time changes. But sometimes, it can be more than just that natural normal turnover. And, so you want to look at, well, how long are people volunteering? Are they coming once and maybe they're not returning? Is there a specific event or duty that people are assigned to that they just did not come back to after they participate in it? So you want to look at these things. Maybe they do not find the work as rewarding or as engaging as they had hoped when they made the decision to volunteer. So, these are just examples of things you might investigate or explore if you were to conduct a needs assessment of this type. A military officer's assignment process is resulting in costly mistakes. Well, this is where, the office has openings and soldiers, and they need to match the two. Maybe the assignment officer does not have enough information about the soldier, or maybe the assignment officer does not have enough information about the position to make a perfect fit. And, this can result in very costly mistakes for the military. So you want to look at, what have the mistakes been? What kind of information was missing? Why was that why was it missing? And what can be done to prevent this in the future? Why conduct needs assessments? They provide groundwork for action, change, and improvement. You may find that simply by having an informal conversation with a coworker about your project at the water cooler or in the break room, or your meetings with your supervisor about the project, or while you're collecting your data, whether you're conducting interviews or focus groups or surveys, that simply by asking questions and talking to people, that you may create energy and enthusiasm towards change. And that energy and enthusiasm and that process provides a groundwork for action, change, and ultimately improvement. It provides a mechanism where broad-based decision-making is more likely to occur. It is highly doubtful that any of you in this class will have an assessment where it's appropriate to collect data for 3 or fewer individuals. I'd say the average, from past experience, students have collected data from 10. In some instances, if you're conducting a survey, you could survey 100 people. I think the record is probably 800 individuals were to be surveyed in this class. Anyway, in doing that, you are gathering input from all these people. You are hearing their voice, their frustrations, their recommendations for solutions, their experiences, and all of that, all of their voice is part of the decision-making process. And by having the perspectives and the voice of so many different stakeholders, this provides a broad base for your decision-making, and it also provides buy-in. Individuals are a whole lot more likely to support and endorse a change proposal where they know they were talked to about and had an opportunity to voice their opinion than when a single person makes a decision without consulting anyone and imposes it on the organization. So in this sense, it makes it more likely that the ultimate project is going to be successful. Now, the next point is one of the most important in the class, and that is there's a tendency to view groups as the same when their needs differ. And this is key to understanding needs assessment. There may be situations where a cookie-cutter approach is needed and to solve a problem. And in these instances, you would not conduct a needs assessment. For instance, maybe a plumbing company is having difficulty with the way that they're scheduling service calls. And what they need to do is move from, doing it on pen and paper like they've done for the last 10 or 15 years when their company was smaller, and move to a computerized system, that will better meet the needs of their growing business. And then there are also other instances where, two groups could not possibly be the same. So for instance, let's go back to the computer center example. When determining the hours that it should be available, you don't want to look at the computer center hours of 10 other universities and decide from that. You want to find out what are the hours needed by the individuals in this organization. Do we have lots of commuter students? Do we have night students? Do we have, do they have full-time jobs? Are they, traditional college students who are attending class during the daytime? So what are the specific hours this computer center needs to be open? So really I'm sorry, I apologize, I misspoke. There are no cookie cutter approaches. For instance, if you have a customer service problem, you don't want to necessarily find out the best customer service practices. What you want to find out, what the true question is, what are the best customer service practices for your organization specifically? So it's very, very customized to the organization, and that is one of the foremost principles about needs assessment I want you to understand. That we conduct them in situations where there are no cookie-cutter approaches, where there's something specific to the organization that suggests that a tailored approach to that organization and that situation is the appropriate course of action. Finally, resources are limited, and it is important to prioritize needs and ensure needs assessment outcomes add value to the organization. When going back to that computer lab example, if you ask students and faculty about all of their needs, faculty may ask for very expensive statistical software. Students may ask for sophisticated gaming software programs, or who knows, what they'll ask. Like what we want, our wants are unlimited, but the computer center is bounded by a reality and bounded by a budget. So what needs can they address, and what needs are most important to address? So needs assessments provide you a groundwork for prioritizing those needs so that you can ensure that the computer center is going to be as effective as possible given the resources that it has. Who conducts needs assessments? Well, governments do, charities, schools, universities, hospitals, corporations, small businesses, churches, community groups. Who benefits from conducting a needs assessment? Patients, customers, students, citizens, employees, society at large. One of the most common misconceptions in this course, and this comes from having taught this 6 or 7 semesters, this happens every semester, students will confuse the terms assessment and evaluation. And, that's understandable. For the majority of people and the majority of situations, it's fine to use these terms interchangeably. I mean, even a couple of dictionary definitions of the terms are so closely similar, they're almost identical. But now that you're in this class, you're becoming, technological experts in this field. You're learning how to be a needs assessor, and you need to understand how being a needs assessor is different from someone who evaluates. And these 2 areas are so different. This program actually has 2 different courses. We have needs assessment. Later on, you'll take evaluating learning and effectiveness. So while these use similar techniques or even identical techniques, the reasons why we conduct them and the way we conduct them are different. And so I just want to discuss a little bit about how I see the differences. So when I think of assessment, I think about the patient at the doctor's office, and they're getting the exam and they're getting the diagnosis. This is a fact-finding, mission that you're on. As a needs assessor, you are trying to collect the data, the information to make the best diagnosis and to inform the best treatment possible. I strongly believe that assessment, that needs assessors should always work from a position of neutrality. So when an organization has unhappy customers, you want to find the reason for the customer service problem. You don't want, the goal is never in a needs assessment to find the source of the problem and punish that person. So you want to work from a position of neutrality. You don't ever want anyone to feel in a needs assessment that their jobs are at stake, that their professional image is at stake. You want to create a safe space where they're free to be open and honest about whatever the issue is that you are exploring, so that you can get the best possible data, and the best possible data to inform your solution. And so, assessment is always conducted before or while action is being taken. So you're exploring what to do, what needs to be done. So it's at the beginning of the change process, and it can be ongoing throughout the change process. Where evaluation differs is evaluation evaluates something that is done. It is at the end of the change process. So you might conduct a needs assessment and later on evaluate if it was successful. Unlike needs assessment, which is neutral, I'm encouraging you to operate from a position of neutrality. Evaluation makes a judgment call. It makes a determination whether or not something was successful. We have employee evaluations that, provide a score, some sort of measure of how we are doing at our jobs. So these processes are judgmental. They do make a determination about the quality of something. And it identifies areas for improvement, but there's definitely, it's definitely not neutral. There's definitely a decision about the quality of something is being made. And that is the reason why assessment and evaluation differ. So, to summarize, assessment usually happens at the beginning or in the middle of the change process as you're deciding what actions to take, and evaluation is always looking backwards at what has been done, and it's making a determination about the quality of something and making, a judgment, and it identifies shortfalls, areas for improvement that an individual or an entity may make. A second common misconception in this course is that students think that the needs assessment is identifying the problem, collecting the data, and implementing the solution, and it's not. The needs assessment, going back to the analogy of the doctor's visit, is only the exam and the diagnosis and the development of the treatment plan. It is not the implementation, and it is not evaluating it after we're done. And in actuality, it's part of a change cycle. So we have assessment which begins at the beginning of a change initiative, or where we have a problem or an opportunity maybe we want to take advantage of, and we don't know how to achieve the change we want to make. And so we conduct the change, we engage in strategic planning, we design the change, implement it, and then once it's implemented, we evaluate it to see how successful we were. And in evaluation, we may identify shortcomings or shortfalls, and those shortfalls can spark the entire cycle to begin again. For the purposes of this course, we are focused strictly on the assessment portion of this change cycle. There are other courses that you will engage in where you are going to be gaining these other skills in the cycle. But here we are focused only on assessment, which is the beginning of the change cycle. Next, I want to discuss course policies and my teaching philosophy. Okay, so by now you're probably wondering, or perhaps are overwhelmed with, the idea of conducting a needs assessment. It may seem very daunting, especially when I mentioned that one student planned on conducting 800 surveys. The key word there was planned. We understand that within the scope of a 10 or a 16-week semester, that is not possible for students to fully conduct a needs assessment. So what we do in this class is we're going to design the needs assessment, and you are going to do some data collection, but not all. You're going to do just enough to begin to analyze and understand, but you're not expected to do all of it. However, some students do, and some students like to complete the whole thing, but every project is different, and if you are conducting, as one student did, 8 focus groups, it's highly doubtful you'd be able to complete that within the scope of a 10-week semester. However, if you are surveying 30 people in a classroom that you lead, then it may be possible for you to do it quite easily within the scope of the time that we have. But ultimately, whether you just design the proposal or you conduct your full assessment, you don't have to conduct the full assessment. You just have to design the proposal and collect some data. And this course is going to help you by doing that, because every single activity that we have in this class is going to support that in some way. And the final project is going to be an 8 to 12 page report in which you describe the organization, its setting, and its context, the problem or opportunity the project will address. You will discuss the project's purpose and the goal or goals of the needs assessment. You will describe the data collection plan and procedure. You will provide your actual data collection instrument and any references. So that's what the final project will look like. We've talked about the needs assessment product. Let's talk about the process of how we get there. The first thing we are going to do is write an initial project idea. This is where you briefly describe the organization and also the problem or opportunity they are faced with that you are proposing as a needs assessment. And based on this, I'll provide you feedback on your idea. It must be a real project. It must be a real organization, a real problem. You are actually going to develop this actual needs assessment proposal for a real needs assessment you plan on conducting. At this point, don't panic. I know that when I was in your shoes, I would also often feel like, oh my gosh, where am I going to find this magical project I'm supposed to do and write about all semester? It always works out. Students always find a project. Most often they find something in their workplace. If not their workplace, then they may look at a community group, a nonprofit, their child's school, their church group, maybe their softball team, the workplace of their spouse or loved one, a family business, things like that. And if you have any difficulty finding a project, let's talk about it. I'm here to help you however I can. And so once you propose your initial idea, I'll give you feedback. And it happens often at this phase that students may propose something that's not a needs assessment. So my feedback is going to kind of guide you in either reframing it in such a way to make it a needs assessment, or encourage you maybe to find a different project. Most often, I'm helping you reconceptualize your project as a needs assessment. I'm not sure I've ever actually told a student that their idea would not work as a needs assessment and to find something else, although that's probably a possibility. And so you'll refine your idea and you'll develop it further as your final project proposal. And this is where I'll either approve or deny your project idea. But don't worry if it's denied. I'll give you feedback to encourage you to refine and revise your idea, and you will revise and resubmit it, and it will get approved eventually. Pretty much 100% of the time in past classes, students get it approved the second time around. After you have your approved project idea, then we move on to the worksheets. Now, what I didn't tell you before about the needs assessment document is it's a highly technical document. There's a logic and an organization to it that you as novices in this class do not already know. And so in past experiences teaching this class, giving students an assignment prompt with a description of what they're to do and write, as students will often leave large sections out. And when it gets to the end of the semester and I'm grading your hat and a third of what's asked for on the assignment prompt is absent, I have no choice but to give you zeros for that much of it. And so that, is something I never want to happen to any of my students. So to help you make sure that you're gathering all the information you need and you're able to put it together in the organized way you need, I have a 2-part worksheet. And it's one worksheet divided in 2 parts just for your convenience. It would be too large for you to accomplish in 1 week. I want you to focus on one half of it at a time. The first half is just describing your organization, your problem or opportunity you want to address, and sort of, outlining what the goals are for your project. And the second part is the methodology. You're going to describe your data collection, your rationale for making the choices and design decisions that you've made, and you will also develop your data collection instrument or instruments. Now, the hat and the worksheet, the requirement is for 1 data collection instrument. However, you're welcome to develop more. The worksheet will ask you for 1, but you're welcome to use more. I'm happy to give you feedback on as many as you submit. So after you complete both worksheets, then you'll get feedback. I grade them as a set. The reason I do is because I want to make sure that the first half flows into the second half. In other words, the way that you define your project in the first half is going to be the basis for all design decisions that you make in developing the methodology in your data collection instrument. So I need to look at these together. I'll give you feedback on them both together. And my feedback is going to be intensive, and that's not to be critical of your project. Not at all. It's that, this is my one-on-one tutoring with you. This is, I'm going to give you my expertise and assessment and, sort of help you really think about in depth, how are you conceptualizing your project? How are you, phrasing and writing your questions? And so it's tailored instruction based on your specific project. And you're going to take that information, you're going to take your worksheets, and you're going to put everything together into a draft. And what you're going to find is that the information from the worksheets flow very nicely into your needs assessment proposal paper. And you will take that paper and you'll do one of 2 things with it. Your first draft, I'd like you to exchange it with a classmate. However, one of my questions in the student information sheet was, how do you feel about teamwork? And we have a couple people who don't like teamwork. So if you're not someone who likes this type of activity, that's okay. You may submit it to the Writing Center. Instead, they have an online service which is very useful. You can just submit it to their website, and in a couple days you'll get your feedback on it. So I want you to do that just to get another set of eyes on your paper, and I want you to take that information, either your classmate or the Writing Center has given you, and revise your paper to create a second draft, and you're going to send that to me. And I will then review your draft and give you feedback. And again, my feedback is going to probably be very intensive. At this point, I may give you feedback on writing and APA, which is the style, the formatting we're supposed to use on this document. I do that, not because this is a writing course, but I think it's important to learn about writing in your major and in your content area. But also, APA is something that I did not develop the criteria for grading your HAT project. The program did, and APA is part of that criteria that is built into how your final project will be evaluated and how other projects in this program will be evaluated. So I will give you feedback on that to help you ensure that you don't lose points unnecessarily for having not used APA properly in that document. And then you will revise it again, and then you will submit your final needs assessment project proposal report as your HAT document at the very end of the semester. This plan is part of my teaching philosophy, which is a scaffolding learning. And what I find is the needs assessment process and report writing lend themselves to using an incremental draft process. The goal of completing the work incrementally is to develop a deeper understanding of the course material. We are going to talk about your project idea, and then you are going to, complete your worksheets where you're looking at the content of the first part of your project, and then the content of the second part of your project, and then you are going to look at the writing of your project. And so, we are focusing on all these different elements to make sure that you have everything there, but that your ideas are also well developed and your paper is strong. By doing it this way, I'm able to provide you feedback and support you in each step of the process. And every activity in this course has been strategically chosen with the ultimate goal of supporting the needs assessment process and report writing. As you can see from this flow chart, these 6 steps are spread out over the course of the semester, with the first assignment being due June 10th and the last one being due June 8th. I want to talk about the second component of my teaching philosophy, and that is giving feedback. Conducting a needs assessment and writing a needs assessment proposal are 2 things that are new to you. This course is designed with points of feedback to connect with you and guide you along the way. The feedback I provide can be, and usually is, intensive, and it's time-consuming for me to provide, but that this feedback personalizes your instruction and tailors it to you and your particular project. And because I give so much feedback, I do not lecture as much in this course as I might otherwise, because the feedback is instruction. It's just instruction that is tailored to you and your specific project. Moving ahead, I want to discuss an important responsibility you have as students in this class, and that is submitting work on time. That being said, I understand that we are all working adults in this class with, we don't have generally the luxury of, being traditional college-age students without, jobs or other responsibilities outside of school. We have many responsibilities that we have to juggle. And, school is one responsibility, but it's not your only responsibility, and I have to be mindful of that as your instructor. On top of that, this is a 10-week summer course, and some of you may have travel planned during the summer, and so my way of being responsive to that is that if you are unable to submit something on time, my expectation of you is that you will contact me in advance. Just send me an email and say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to submit this on time. You don't have to give me a reason. I would like to propose I submit in 2 days or 3 days. And you send me that request and you ask for an extension, I will grant your extension. 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10, based on prior experience, I grant extensions when students ask for them. What you should not do under any circumstances, or what I discourage you from doing, is not turning something in and not telling me something's come up, and then coming to me at the end of the semester and say, how can I salvage a situation? I want to see you be proactive, throughout the semester, and be the responsible adults that that we all know that you are, and ask for an extension in the first place, rather than special consideration or treatment at the end of the semester. That being said, if you find out that you're falling behind in the semester, talk to me. Don't let things go too late. Don't get to the point where, oh my gosh, I haven't submitted 2 things. I don't think I can face her. No, don't do that. The thing to do if you find you're falling behind, talk to me. Let's work out a plan to catch you up and help you complete the semester on time. If you fall into the category of students who turn in work late and you do not contact me in advance to get an extension, then there is a late penalty. And that penalty ranges in a point deduction of 10 to 100% of the possible grade on that assignment. Now, because the feedback is important to developing your project, I still encourage you to submit it to get that feedback, regardless if you can no longer get 100% of the credit. The reason why I have to have a late penalty policy like that is because of the instructional design of the course. If students were to wait till last end of the semester to submit their HAP projects, I no longer have an opportunity to guide you and to give you feedback. You don't have that feedback to prevent you from making mistakes which could result in serious point loss on your final project. So it is important that we stay on time and on track and as close to the schedule as possible, so that the instructional design of this course works in the way that is planned and intended to do. It is because that feedback is such an important part of the instructional design of this course that I include it in the participation grade. Participation is 10% of your final grade. So the way that feedback is part of your participation is that I expect, as part of your participation, for you to address my feedback. By address, I do not mean that you have to implement every single suggestion or idea I may recommend. I don't. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your project. It is your organization. It is your problem. You understand it. You have firsthand expertise in it that I do not. You have to make the decisions that you feel are right and best for your project. That being said, you too have to consider and address my feedback. There'll be times when I'll put in the margin of your paper just an idea. And you may know something and know why that idea wouldn't work. Okay, fine, don't incorporate it. But if I provide feedback on something, there's really no room for a difference of opinion. For instance, if header is wrong in APA, your header is wrong in APA. There's really no reason not to change it. So it has happened in the past where a student has gone to the end of the semester and they have not addressed any of the feedback I have provided. And in these situations, I consider failure to address my feedback like failure to participate in class. It's like missing class lectures, because my feedback is like lectures. So it's very, very important that you engage with me on the feedback on your papers. If there's something you don't understand or you don't agree with, you're curious about, or, hey, this looks like a really important suggestion to you, but I don't feel it's the right decision for my project because of this reason, etc. Send me an email, let me know, so we can have that dialogue. This should be a two-way conversation. You are submitting your work to me, I'm giving you feedback, and I'm looking for you to, incorporate that in your work. And so if you're not able to, let's talk about it. But certainly I do not expect you to implement every recommendation I make. I don't think that would be practical. But just consider it, make a thoughtful effort to address it. And if you can't, talk to me. That's all I ask. And so it's not in any case a given that students automatically get 10 participation points. That is what I thought when I was an undergraduate student. I just thought that de facto we all got 10% of our grade for participation. No, it's possible for a student to get 5 out of 10 because they are not engaging in the class in the way that I want them to. And that means failure to respond to emails, failure to respond to feedback, not staying on top of announcements. And by the way, when I have something in an announcement, and students email me questions, and I want you to email me questions, but if there's, if you email me questions about things I'm talking about in the announcements, I can begin to see that maybe you're not reading the announcements. So stay on top of the announcements, stay on top of the emails, stay on top of the feedback, and communicate with me. I want to be engaged with you. I want you to text me when you have questions. I want you to email me and call me when you have questions. I don't expect you to be out there, in cyberspace conducting your projects all alone and not interrupt me or contact me. I want to hear from you. I want to work with you. I want to be a part of your projects as much as you find practical. Anyway, I want to talk briefly about how participation is graded. So we do have engagement with classmates, opportunities to engage with others in this class. These opportunities are largely at your discretion. So when we have readings from our textbook, there will be either a quiz to test your reading, or there will be a discussion board activity, and you have your choice between the two. If you choose a discussion board, how you interact with your classmates is going to be what is graded, and also the depth of your contribution to the thread. There is an assignment that gives you the option of completing a PowerPoint with others in the class. If you choose this option, how you engage with others in this exercise will be part of your participation grade. Your first draft of your paper you'll either submit it to the Writing Center or you'll exchange it with a classmate. So this is part of your participation grade if you exchange it with a classmate. So when I look at these things, I look at the quality of your participation and the depth of your contribution. It's not enough simply to post, but what do you add to the discussion thread? It's not enough to be a member of a team. It's how much of a member have you been. It's not enough just to exchange papers, but you have to make a thoughtful contribution to help your classmates in your response. And that's what I look for. I expect you to actively monitor your Blackboard and your email at a minimum, and this is a minimum at least 2 times a week. Sometimes I'll email you with something that needs to be addressed fairly quickly. If I email you on a Monday and you check your email every Monday, then it's going to be 7 days that of the semester we've lost waiting for you to respond. So, in my personal opinion, twice a week is too little. I wish all students would check their email every day or have their email forwarded to an account that they check every day. But I can't require that, at least 2 times a week, please. And if I'm emailing you, I'm not getting any responses, then, I'm going to notice, and that may be a factor in your participation grade. Actively monitor Blackboard too. There may be confusion about an assignment, and I will post an announcement that will clarify. You should be on top of Blackboard too every week. This is a shortened semester, it's because it's more condensed. You should be checking these things more regularly to stay on top of things, definitely. And when I email you, I expect you to respond. If I'm writing just you, sometimes I'll send emails to the entire class. I don't expect you to respond to those. But as I just said, review my feedback and address feedback appropriately. This brings me to the final component of my teaching philosophy I want to discuss with you, and that is writing. You do not need to be a good writer to do well in this course. But I want you to keep in mind that being able to communicate in your discipline is important. The ability to communicate effectively is an expectation the university has of all its bachelor's graduates, and writing is an expectation people have of professionals, especially in our field. This is the rubric for the HAT project. It's the grading criteria which I will use to determine your grade on your HAT. This was developed by the program and approved by the department. I did not write it, and I have no ability to change it. I must evaluate your work using this document. I want to draw your attention to the bottom two rows in the first column, or the second column. As you will see, 20% of your grade on your HAT are for process and references and appendices. And the goal that for all students in this class for their final project is that writing and thinking are clear, accurate, detail-oriented, no or few mistakes of grammar, punctuation, word usage, and sentence structure. Applies APA in headings, citations, and references. Interpersonal oral communication, technology skills are applied. The student includes relevant appendices and accurate and precise references following APA 6th edition format. Anyway, so this is the criteria I have to use. So when I stress writing in this semester, it's not because I'm trying to be an English teacher. It's because I think it's important for you to be successful in this class, in this program, and in this field, and also the program does as well. And it's because you will be evaluated on your final project for your writing, and I want you to be successful with your final project. So I will give you feedback on your writing. I may encourage you to go to the Writing Center. You will have an extra credit Writing Center opportunity for using it, and I encourage you to take advantage of that information and those resources so you can do well in this class. So what's next? Well, we have a lecture, What is Needs Assessment? It's going to be under your week 1 content. I want you to read the syllabus in chapters 1 and 2 in the textbook. For your convenience, I have provided you with chapters 1 and 2 under your weekly resources. This is just a one-time convenience until you can get copies of the book on your own. It's available digitally on sites like Amazon, or you can get a hard copy from our bookstore or on the web somewhere. I want you to complete the student information sheet if you've not done so already. Complete the course navigation exercise. I want you to do these 2 things for Saturday, June 3rd. And I want you to contact me if you have any questions or if I may be of assistance in any way. And this concludes our lecture. I'm sorry it went on so long. I thank you very much for your time. Future lectures will not be this long. It's because this is our first. There's a lot to cover that this was so long. Thank you very much. Please contact me if I can help. Bye.